Que viva Abril sempre, agora mais do que nunca.
The Carnation Revolution was over, but this was only the beginning of a revolutionary process. The country was left in ruins, socially, economically, and politically, and there was an urge to solve the political problems. After the revolution, the MFA left Portugal's government to the Junta de Salvação Nacional, which means National Salvation Junta, that will be provisionally responsible for the country. The presidence of Junta de Salvação Nacional was handed over to General António Spínola, a right-leaning politician. However, Junta de Salvação Nacional was in charge of fulfilling MFA's 3Ds program: democratize, decolonize, and develop. Junta de Salvação Nacional was responsible for the dismissal of the President of the Republic, Américo Tomás, and the Chief of the Council, Marcelo Caetano, who later left the country for exile in Brazil. All of the other civilian governors and other administrative staff were dismissed as well. The Portuguese youth, the Portuguese Legion, the political police PED, and censorship were extinguished. The political prisoners were freed, and other personalities in exile returned to Portugal. Political parties like the Portuguese Communist Party and Socialist Party were legalized, and clandestine organizations like trade unions were legalized as well. The creation of political parties was allowed, and Portugal became a multi-party democracy. The MFA promised to the Portuguese people free elections within a year, so the Constituent Assembly could draft a constitution. António Spínola was appointed President of the Republic, in order to guarantee the good functioning of government institutions. People's longing and desire for change erupted in waves of manifestations and labor demands. These protests and strikes would be supported by leftist forces. However, due to their spontaneity and popular adherence, they were difficult to control. Unable to control the people, the first provisional government resigned before completing 2 months, leaving the future of Portugal on Spínola's hands. 5 months after the revolution, the deep ideological difference between the radical left and moderate groups was already clear. Concerned about the direction of the revolution, Spínola called for a manifestation, known as maioria silenciosa, silent majority.
A maioria silenciosa do povo português terá, pois, de despertar e de se defender ativamente dos totalitarismos extremistas que se degladiam na sombra.
But skillful propaganda and boycott maneuvers made by the radical left led to its failure, and the resignation of General Spínola, who was succeeded by Costa Gomes. Besides the political path to the young democracy dividing the country, the colonial question was also a fractious one, as some wanted immediate decolonization and a colonial war to end, while others wanted to negotiate independence. In addition, the radical left politicization of the MFA caused great concern in Western countries, which feared a communist revolution. Replacing Palma Carlos, Vasco Gonçalves was appointed to head the second provisional government, which also had an increasing military presence in the governing caste, resulting in the president losing influence. The connection to leftist groups was increasingly strong. The second provisional government showed strong links with left-wing parties, especially a strong connection between Vasconcelos and the Portuguese Communist Party, which was becoming increasingly prominent in the state apparatus. The MFA also showed a strong connection with the left, of which the military Hotel Saraiva de Carvalho stands out, increasingly attached to the far left and the head of the COCON, Continent Operational Command, a military command created by the MFA responsible for enforcing the new conditions created by the Carnation Revolution. On October 1st, the third provisional government took office, which was still led by Vasconcelos. On March 11, 1975, Spinland supporters try a coup to remove leftist forces from power. This coup fails and led the country to the PREC, Processo Revolucionário em Curso, which means ongoing revolutionary process, through which the working classes will take power and socialism will be installed.
Latifundistas, são os monopolistas, são os colonialistas, enfim, os parasitas. São os latifundistas, são os monopolistas, são os colonialistas, enfim, os parasitas. São os latifundistas, são os monopolistas, são os colonialistas, enfim, os parasitas.
There was a radicalization of the process, leading to the nationalization of banks, insurance companies, and also big companies that would be considered as strategic for the development of the country. On the night of that same day, the MFA formed the Revolution Council, which concentrated the powers of the now defunct National Salvation Junta and State Council. The Revolution Council showed a clear connection to the communist ideals. On April 25, 1975, a year after the revolution, elections for a constituent assembly took place. Unlike the elections during the fascist dictatorship, where only a specific part of the population could vote, these elections were marked by universal suffrage, and also the freedom to choose the party they could vote for. The Socialist Party, represented by Mário Soares, which was increasingly opting for liberal policies, obtained the majority of the votes, and the Communist Party, represented by Álvaro Cunhal, despite the influence it had, presented itself as a third political force, behind PPD, a centre-right party, represented by Francisco Sá Carneiro. This Constituent Assembly would be responsible for the elaboration of the new constitution. On April 26th, the fourth provisional government took office and was still led by Vasconcelos. But the disagreement between more moderate political parties grows, especially the Socialist Party, whose leading figure, Mário Soares, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, threatens to leave the government. The conflict of interests between left-wing and right-wing parties, the opposition between the so-called Western democracy, USA, and the Eastern democracy, USSR, characterized the period of political instability. The Socialist Party, having the majority of the votes, headed the struggle of the moderate forces in opposition to revolutionary radicalism. Meanwhile, social agitation was frequent, and workers felt the need to take the means of production into their hands and run the factories and companies by themselves. The climate of agitation will rise from May of 1975, where the conflict between moderate and revolutionary forces would escalate. This period will be known as Verão Quente, hot summer. It's the beginning of a wave of expropriation and occupation of empty houses, latifundium, and the land distribution with the land reform, mainly in the south. Factories and companies are occupied, and the owners of the means of production are thrown out by the workers. However, right-wing counter-revolutionary forces also emerge, and will be responsible for terrorist acts, such as assaulting and setting fire to left-wing parties' headquarters. The Communist Party was the most affected. During summer of 1975, the country was on the brink of civil war. But this situation would soften with the resignation of Vasconcelos, the appointment of Pinheiro Alves, and a more moderate government. Otelo Saraiva de Carvalho was also dismissed. On the 25th of November of 1975, soldiers from Tancos attempted a coup to bring back the far left. But General Ramalho Yanes, future President of the Republic, controls and defeats the rebels. Portugal entered a period of political normalization, reinforced by the approval of the Constitution in 1976.